So we're kind of coming around full circle and discussing ArtFight again. My last video was just on personal experiences and how my ArtFight season went. On this video, I kind of wanted to focus on all of the general things that was going on during the season and some of the reoccurring things and discourses that arose during the month. I do think a lot of these issues all have one factor in common, so they all kind of tie into each other. But I'm going to skim over some of the basic issues and stuff that I think I covered last year when I talked about Stardust versus Seafoam. I did notice a lot of tracing, increased use of AI, which is nothing new, and this year especially a lot of base usage, like YCH bases and using bases off of Pinterest, whatever. They were discussed a lot more, I feel, this season. People just didn't really read the rules on attacks because you cannot use bases, even your own bases, on attacks, and one of the reasons is because they want each attack to be somewhat unique. Even if you have a gimmick for your account or for your attacks, like maybe if you've ever seen the Bread ArtFight user or Joke ArtFight attacks, those gimmicks are completely fine. Each of them is original in on their own, even though there is a gimmick. The issue arises when you're drawing every character with a base or something adjacent to that because there is no originality in that, and it's really just a your character here sort of base and situation, which isn't what the ArtFight season is about. Using my own attacks as an example, even though I was doing majority bust shots because that saved me the most time, I had an influx of revenges that I needed to do this year. I made sure to keep them unique and do different things with either hands or expressions, just to make sure that there is some distinction and originality in each piece. I think glossing over just the attacks portion of the rules would go a long way in how you're doing the attacks next year if this was an issue that you've noticed or something that you've seen other artists do. In general, people just weren't reading the rules as often, and I've discussed this last year also, but again, people were starting their attacks early, point farming incorrectly. I wasn't surprised at the usage of AI or in the increased usage of AI. That was already something that I think was going to happen regardless with the increased accessibility of it. And as much as it is frustrating, there's nothing that can really be done besides reporting them. I do think reporting was a lot better this year than any of the previous years because of the improvements in the site itself. Again, there was also some minor controversies that I've seen, whitewashing characters, a lot of tracing. This happens basically every year, but there have been a lot more cases of it this year in comparison to some of the other ones. Moving on to the second most issue and discussion topic that I've seen for ArtFight 2025 is dry spells and dry season, and by that I mean basically what everyone was reporting is that there was just a point mid-season where basically nobody was on the site, and while I hadn't experienced this because I was always on site at least multiple times a week trying to do all of my revenges, I know that was the case for most folks, is that there was just like radio silence from a bunch of other users. And I think this is mostly because of the way burnout was for some of the newer users this year, because ArtFight is a very grindy event if you are someone who's constantly doing attacks and interacting with the platform. And that was what I've done the entire season, and I do see what people mean by it was oddly quiet mid-season, the second and third weeks of ArtFight. I think that a lot of people were excited, rushing to do everything within the first week or the first few days, and then immediately burning out. And that's what caused a lot of the dry spells that we've seen this season. And I haven't seen it this quiet, I think, either, in comparison to any of the other seasons that I've been on the platform. So, yeah, that was kind of bizarre, but it was mostly a user issue than a general platform issue and an individual losing motivation than anything else. One of the last things I saw a lot of was point farming, quantity over quality, right? In terms of attacks, I saw a lot of really low effort gimmick attacks, which is really disheartening because a gimmick attack can still be a very high effort thing. This year, there was also a lot of grading issues in general. Some people were putting their art too low in terms of grading, some people putting theirs too high. a bunch of minor issues that caused the point system to be a little bit shaky. I think the really easy way to alleviate this is checking the attacks guide. I was checking it a lot because I did animated attacks for the first time, so I was constantly checking the attacks guides to make sure I was grading correctly and that everything was in order. And if more people check those, and again, the rules, it would make the season a lot easier to understand, and I don't think that those would be as big issues as they were. And now that we've talked all of that, we need to discuss why all of these things were such big problems this year, or at least increased issues. And that is because of the amount of new users this year. At least in my case, I've been seeing a lot of first-timers pre-season who were really excited to join ArtFight, similarly to 2023 when I think a lot of these issues were rampant, was because of the amount of new users coming from TikTok and other platforms. ArtFight was being more advertised, and while I don't think it was at the same degree that it was in 2023, I feel like 2023 was definitely a year. Those issues were still common because of the influx of new users who are inexperienced, haven't read the rules. And this isn't to dog on any new users at all. I really am happy that there's so many new people introduced to ArtFight. It's probably one of my favorite events, and now that this is my 5th year, I still feel that same overwhelming joy doing this event. But it's just really frustrating. Even though some of the rules may not make sense to a lot of new users, they're to make the game itself fair. That's why there's a lot of rules and regulations on starting your attacks early, or grading your art fairly, is because they want the event to not only be fun for the individual, but for everyone involved, so there's at least some formality in the event itself. I don't think these are as big of issues as some people have made them out to be. A lot of the issues that I saw with ArtFight were mostly contained to art talk, which is why I was like kind of dodging it most of the season. One of the nice things is I didn't see a lot of beginner artist hate or the quality of their attacks, because obviously there's always going to be beginner artists, and I think trying to push them off of platform was insane, but I didn't really see that as much of a regurgitated take on art talk this year. So that's one breath of fresh air. Of course, I'd love to hear how your season went. I talked about my experiences with this season and how difficult it was for me, and I'll probably be linking that video and all of my other ArtFight related videos in the description, but I'd love to hear how your season went, any issues that you've noticed, because I really love discussing ArtFight, and I think it's just a cool and awesome event. And if you will participate next year, because I feel like I've been seeing a lot of people deciding not to participate this year and next year, and I don't know, I think it's just really neat to hear your reasons as to why and what you would like to see fixed on the platform. So yeah, that's all.